Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the worlds of the Imperium as we dive deep into what is known in the Imperial lexicon as a tomb world, sometimes called a grave world, not to be confused with the Necron tomb world. This is a world that's basically a giant mausoleum. We're going to be looking at a specific world called Thaur. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40k content every single day. And of course, if you have any suggestions, comment down below. And don't forget to share this with your friends. Let's get into 40 facts on the tomb world of Thaur. Thaur is a planetary mausoleum, a shrine world dedicated not only to the veneration of the living emperor of mankind, but of the countless nobilities and saints who have passed away over the long millennia. Much of the world's surface is dominated by endless leagues of low, rolling hills, swathed in dense woodlands. It is within the dark shadows, beneath the endless canopy, that the elite of the aristocracy of this sector rests its dead. Only the very wealthiest are buried here in the conventional sense. The bones of the less highly ranked used to adorn or even comprise the opulent tombs of their betters, the fate to which pilgrims aspire. The shrouded forest floor is in effect one single necropolis formed by many millions of crypts, graves, and shrines, all connected via kilometers of wide walkways filled with shuffling pilgrims. Some edifices are so old that the writing carved into the stone is unreadable, the faces of the mourning statues blank and expressionless, following centuries of weathering. Many structures are cracked open or sinked into the ground and covered by a dense layer of moss and ivy. The tombs vary in size, from individual gravestones to enormous cathedral-like structures that burst upward through the canopy to tower over the forests. Entire avenues are formed by kilometer after kilometer of tall statues depicting weeping saints and angelic guardians, some so new that the marble gleams in the sunlight, filtered down through the trees, others missing limbs or having merged with the trunks of trees. The dead are not the only occupants of Thaur, for the graves, tombs, and shrines must be tended lest they waste away entirely, and new ones must be constructed to accommodate the endless supply of remains. These and similar tasks are carried out by the population known as the Eulogos Ascaline, an entire society living in the midst of the dead and entirely devoted to their care. The Eulogos is divided into a bewildering array of classes. At the very bottom are those tasked with scouring the moss and ivy from the oldest of graves, while at the very top are the Vestals, who remain vigil over the tombs of senior dead, weeping constantly in quiet devotion as they spend their entire lives in this sacred task. They are also shrine masons who construct everything from the smallest grave marker to the tallest bell tower, adorning their works with the bones of those not entitled to a full burial. Others tend to the countless eternal flames mounted upon many of the tombs, while many more still are responsible for controlling the hordes of vermin inevitably attracted to the presence of so many preserved human bodies. Surprisingly, servitors are not used on Thaur to care for the dead or their remains, even for the most mundane tasks, for such creatures are entirely unable to shed tears. The most senior member of the Eulogos is the impossibly ancient Lord of the Wake, Geronius Pyre. As Lord of the Wake, Pyre is also the imperial commander of Thaur, though he cares little for this role and leaves most of the associated tasks to his numerous underlings. His main duties revolve around the performance of the most important services of remembrance, whether for newly interned nobles or for those who died many centuries ago. Each day sees Lord Pyre performing a service, some attended by crowds of mourning offworlders, others by no more than a cluster of weeping Vestals. The Lord of the Wake does not discriminate between the age of the deceased, investing a eulogy to a general dead for 5,000 years with the same weight and dignity as a merchant prince only just placed in the ground. While on the surface the population of Thaur might appear to rank amongst the most dedicated adherents of the imperial creed, this is far from the truth. The Eulogos is riven by factionalism, and the Lord of the Wake only attains his position by adding numerous rivals to the graves they formerly attended. These groups also maintain competing beliefs. Some hold that when a senior member of the nobility dies, selected members of his family and household should be put to death as well, in order to attend him at the site of the emperor. Others hold that life is fleeting and largely meaningless, encouraging entire bloodlines to march into the crypt and sacrifice themselves in the hope of a better afterlife. A small number seek to delve further into the soil than human graves descend, led by tall, cloaked figures, seeking out older things said to slumber deep in the clammy soil. It is said that they sometimes recover some dreaded, nameless relic of the things long dead, which they venerate as if it were the holiest of icons, in stark disregard to the imperial creed. Equally chilling are shadowed cults that have desecrated the graves in worship of decay and the ruinous powers that embody it. How long these cults have been operating amongst the Eulogos is unknown, as is the true extent of their influence. Whatever the truth, it seems likely that the forces stirring them on are growing stronger as the pandemonium rises across the sector. And those were 40 facts on the tomb world of Thaur. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to share it with your friends. I hope it inspires you or it inspires them to create terrain, tomb world type terrain, not grounds, but like of course graveyard terrain. Because whenever I see people doing graveyard terrain pieces, I always think, oh, that's more for Age of Sigmar, or that's more for fantasy or another game system, not so much 40k. I don't want to see my Space Marines walking around a graveyard. It doesn't make any sense. But knowing now that there are entire planets dedicated to like the dead and just it's a giant tomb, it kind of inspires me to create tomb style terrain, but not in the same way as like just a tombstone or like the skeletons, more like mausoleum looking graveyards and stuff. It would be really badass to have an army fighting, especially a kill team, like a small kill team, because the board is smaller. Create like a small kill team fighting within this world of Thaur. And towards the end, it got kind of exciting. Well, not exciting, but kind of scary, I guess, because we all know that the cult that's developing on Thaur is really just worshiping Nurgle, because Nurgle is the god of decay. And we all know what happens when Nurgle gets a hold of the dead. He revives them. He gives them life. Zombies. If you check out our 40 facts on zombies, you'll see how the undead have conquered entire planets and have created a huge nuisance within an entire sector. So the fact that this entire planet is full of just dead people, it's kind of scary for if that cult develops the strength to revive everyone. It's basically the Night King in Game of Thrones reviving all these dead people and then marching south. Except in 40k, it would be reviving an entire planet of dead people and marching towards the sector and trying to conquer this sector. It would be a really good story. And it's cool. Again, check out the 40 facts on the zombie plague, I think it's called. I'll put a link down in the description, or a link card on the very top. I forget what it's called. One of the two. And this story really reminded me of a Vice documentary that I watched, especially when they were talking about people living in this grave planet. How in the Philippines, I think it is, or somewhere in Indonesia, there are graveyards that are too full. Like there's too many skeletons, too many dead people, and what they do is they have people who tend to the graveyards. They live there. They actually live in tombs, like some of the used tombs. Like there's somebody dead and they're using it as a mattress, or as a room, I guess you could say. But people live in these graveyards, and after, let's say, 5 years, they contact the family of the deceased and they say, okay, we don't have enough space. You can pay extra to keep your loved one here, or we have to open up the grave, take the bones out, and put somebody new. So a lot of the times they do that. They are in charge of opening up the grave, taking out the remains, probably just tossing them, and then cleaning out the thing and bringing in a new person, which is crazy. I mean, it makes sense. If there's not enough space, they're just dead people, and nobody wants to use up space for well, it's not logical to just have empty space or have space that can be used for something else just to keep somebody that's already dead. But so I guess it is logical in that sense, but it is kind of scary, and these people reminded me of that in the world. So it goes to show you, like, the grimdark universe of 40k has, so some of these things do happen within the world of, or within our world, the reality. Especially when you talk about like skulls and bones and like the veneration of the dead and stuff. That's basically what the cultures in Mexico usually tend to follow. They just have an obsession with like the dead. But yeah, watch Coco. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, don't forget to share it with your friends, like, comment, do all that good stuff. It helps out the channel when you do so. If you want to support us a little bit more, jump on over to Patreon. A simple $1 a month helps us create more videos. And yeah, thanks for everything. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first.